The wind howled across the Gobi Desert, whipping sand against the reinforced walls of the research compound. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the excavation pit, her eyes fixed on the metallic surface that gleamed beneath powerful floodlights. After 3 years of searching, after countless satellite scans and ground-penetrating radar surveys, they'd finally found it. The object that shouldn't exist. Dr. Chen, Marcus Webb, her assistant, scrambled down the steel stairs that lined the pit's walls. The spectrometer results just came back. You need to see this. His hands trembled as he held out the tablet, its screen bright against the approaching dusk. Sarah brushed back a strand of black hair that had escaped her protective headwear, leaving a smudge of dirt across her forehead. The numbers on the screen made her breath catch. This can't be right. Run it again. We did. 3 times. Marcus's voice cracked with excitement. Whatever this thing is, it's not from Earth. The material composition doesn't match anything in our database. The object they'd uncovered was roughly cylindrical, about 30 meters in length, with a surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Despite being buried under tons of sand for what carbon dating suggested was at least 50,000 years, it showed no signs of corrosion or wear. Sarah's radio crackled. Dr. Chen, we've got movement on the eastern surface. Some kind of activity. It was Rodriguez, their security chief. Something in his voice made her skin prickle. She turned toward the east, where the last rays of sunlight painted the desert in shades of blood and gold. At first, she saw nothing but the endless expanse of sand and rock. Then she noticed it. A distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but moving against the wind. Get everyone out of the pit, she ordered into her radio. Now, the evacuation was barely complete when the distortion materialized into something solid. A ship, if you could call it that. It looked more like a piece of abstract art, geometric shapes folding in on themselves in ways that hurt the eyes to look at directly. It hung silently about 50 meters above the desert floor, casting no shadow despite the setting sun. Security teams, hold your positions but do not engage. Rodriguez's voice was steady now, professional. All non-essential personnel, please proceed to the bunker. Sarah didn't move. This was her site, her discovery. She'd spent her entire career preparing for a moment like this, though she'd always imagined it would involve fossilized microbes or ancient ruins. Not this. A beam of light shot down from the ship, and 3 figures appeared. They were tall, easily 2.5 meters, with bodies that seemed to be made of overlapping plates of some iridescent material. Their heads were elongated, with multiple eyes arranged in a pattern that reminded Sarah of a spider's. Dr. Sarah Chen. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, resonating in her bones. We are the variety. We have come to reclaim our property. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. I'm Dr. Chen. This site is under the protection of the United Nations. We're conducting a legitimate archaeological investigation. The tallest of the Viridi moved closer, its movement too smooth to be natural. You do not understand. This world, your world, was never meant to be inhabited. This device was buried here as a warning, a quarantine marker. By unearthing it, you have triggered protocols that have lain dormant for millions of years. A warning about what? Sarah asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. This planet was once a testing ground for weapons of unimaginable power, weapons that reshape matter, that alter the very fabric of evolution itself. We thought we had contained it all, buried it deep enough that nothing would ever find it. The Viridi's eyes shifted color, from deep purple to a brilliant gold. We were wrong. Life found a way to survive here, to evolve. Your species, you are an impossibility. A mutation we never predicted. Sarah's mind raced. The anomalies in human DNA that we've never been able to explain, the seemingly random genetic adaptations, are the echoes of weapons that should have rendered this planet permanently uninhabitable. The Viridi finished. Your ancestors survived because they were changed by what we left behind. And now, by uncovering this marker, you have begun a process that cannot be stopped. The ground beneath them trembled. From deep within the excavation pit, a low hum began to build, a sound that made Sarah's teeth ache and her vision blur. The metallic surface they'd uncovered began to glow with an inner light, patterns appearing and shifting across its surface like living things. It begins, the Viridi said. The awakening. We must contain this site immediately, or what sleeps beneath your world will rise again. Sarah looked at the artifact, then at the aliens, and finally at her team. Humans who had dedicated their lives to uncovering the past, never imagining they might unleash it. Tell me what we need to do. The sun sank below the horizon, leaving them in darkness broken only by the increasingly bright glow from the pit. As Sarah listened to the Viridi explain what humanity had unwittingly discovered, she couldn't help but wonder if this was how every great civilization fell, not through war or natural disaster, but by digging too deep into their own past. But humans were different. They were, as the Viridi had said, impossible. And perhaps that impossibility was exactly what they needed to survive what was coming. The artifact's hum grew louder, and somewhere, deep beneath the Earth's surface, something ancient began to stir. The United Nations Security Council chamber had never been so crowded. Sarah sat between General Harris of the U.S. Joint Chiefs and Dr. Peddle from the World Health Organization, watching as the main display showed live feeds from similar meetings happening in capitals across the globe. The Viridi observation ship still hovered above the Gobi site, its impossible geometry now familiar enough to be merely unsettling rather than painful to look at. The artifact's energy signature has increased by 300% in the last 48 hours, Sarah reported, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. And we're detecting similar signatures at 12 other locations around the planet. The Chinese representative leaned forward. And you're certain these Viridi are not responsible for these activations? They're as concerned as we are, Sarah replied, remembering the way the aliens' crystalline bodies had vibrated with what she now recognized as fear. Maybe more so. They've been monitoring Earth for millions of years, waiting for something like this to happen. General Harris cleared his throat. What I want to know is why they left weapons of mass destruction buried on our planet in the first place. Seems mighty convenient that they show up right when we find one. The Viridi ambassador, or whatever it was, stood in the center of the chamber, its iridescent plates shifting colors in patterns that Sarah was beginning to recognize as emotional indicators. Right now, they spelled out something close to resignation. Your planet, it began, its resonant voice filling the chamber, was once part of a vast testing ground. We were not the only species seeking to develop weapons capable of reshaping reality itself. The conflict that ensued nearly destroyed this entire sector of space. When it ended, we buried our weapons, our laboratories, our mistakes, as deep as we could. We never imagined that life would not only survive here, but evolve to incorporate aspects of our technology. Incorporate? Dr. Patel asked sharply. What exactly do you mean? Sarah pulled up another display, this one showing a complex DNA sequence. Human beings have genetic markers that don't follow normal evolutionary patterns, sequences that seem to have been artificially introduced, but so long ago that they're now fundamental to our species. We've never been able to explain them before. The weapons we tested here, the Viridi continued, were designed to alter matter at its most fundamental level, to change the very rules of biology. Your species didn't just survive these changes, you adapted to them, integrated them. Every human being carries within them fragments of technology that should have been impossible to survive. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Sarah watched the faces around her as they tried to process the implications. Humanity hadn't just evolved naturally. They were the product of ancient weapons testing, changed in ways that even their creators hadn't thought possible. A tremor ran through the building, subtle but unmistakable. Similar reports were coming in from around the world. The Earth itself seemed to be waking up. The artifact isn't just a warning marker, Sarah said, her voice cutting through the chaos. It's part of a network, a control system for whatever is buried down there. And now that we've activated one, they're all waking up, the Viridi finished. The weapons, the laboratories, the autonomous defense systems, all of it. And they are responding to the presence of human DNA. Your very existence is triggering protocols that were never meant to be activated. Another tremor, stronger this time. On the main display, satellite imagery showed strange lights appearing in the depths of the oceans, in remote mountain ranges, in the heart of dense jungles. The Earth was lighting up like a circuit board coming to life. "Can't you shut it down?" General Harris demanded. "This is your technology." "It was our technology," the Viridi corrected. "But it has been changed by its time here, just as it changed your ancestors. We no longer fully understand what it has become." Sarah stood up, drawing everyone's attention. "Then we need to understand it. Fast, because whatever's down there, it's not just waking up, it's evolving. Just like we did." She pulled up the latest readings from the Gobi site. The artifact's surface was now covered in shifting patterns that seemed almost organic, as if the metal itself was growing, learning, becoming something new. "The Viridi created these weapons," she said, "but humanity was shaped by them. Maybe that's why we found them now. Maybe we're the only ones who can understand what they've become." The chamber fell silent as another tremor shook the building. On the displays, the strange lights were spreading, connecting, forming patterns that spanned continents. Time was running out. "Dr. Chen," the Security Council president said, "what exactly are you proposing?" Sarah looked at the Viridi, then back at the assembled leaders of humanity. "I'm proposing we do what humans do best. We adapt. We take something dangerous and make it our own. The Viridi might have created these weapons, but we're the ones who survived them. Now we need to figure out how to control them before they control us." As if in response to her words, the artifact's energy signature spiked again. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, ancient machines continued to awaken, responding to the presence of the impossible species that had survived their creators' wars. The question was, would humanity master these ancient powers or be destroyed by them? The race against time had begun, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The screens in the mobile command center showed chaos erupting across the globe. Sarah watched as another ancient installation burst from beneath the Pacific Ocean, its massive form rising like a metallic leviathan from the depths. It was the fifth one this week. "Rio de Janeiro is reporting massive seismic activity," Marcus called out, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "Pattern matches the Singapore emergence. We've got maybe 30 minutes before another one surfaces." Sarah studied the data scrolling across her tablet, trying to ignore the tremors that constantly shook the command center. The Gobi site had become the focal point of humanity's response to the crisis, with military forces from a dozen nations establishing a perimeter around the ever-expanding artifact. "The pattern recognition algorithms are complete," Dr. Patil announced, joining Sarah at the main console. "Each installation is activating in sequence, following the planet's magnetic field lines. It's like they're forming some kind of network." The Viridi observer, whom they'd taken to calling Aurora due to its shifting color patterns, moved closer to the displays. These installations were never meant to work together. Each was designed to test different aspects of our weapons technology. The fact that they're coordinating their activities suggests they're thinking. Sarah finished. "The systems are evolving, adapting, just like they forced our ancestors to adapt." She pulled up a genetic analysis on the main screen. "Look at this. Every time a new installation activates, we're detecting changes in human DNA within a 1,000-kilometer radius. Subtle changes, but consistent." General Harris, who had become the military liaison to the project, stepped forward. "Changes? What kind of changes?" "Enhancement of existing markers," Dr. Patil explained. "The same markers we now know came from exposure to this technology millions of years ago. It's like like the installations recognize us as part of their system. A deafening alarm cut through the command center. On the main screen, the artifact at the Gobi site pulsed with new patterns, its surface flowing like liquid metal. Multiple contacts. Marcus shouted. Something's emerging from the artifact. Sarah rushed to the observation window. The artifact's surface had split open, and something was rising from within. Dozens of metallic constructs, each about the size of a car, their forms shifting and changing as they moved. Defense systems active. General Harris barked into his radio. Do not engage unless. His words were cut off as every electronic device in the command center suddenly went dark. In the sudden silence, Sarah could hear a high-pitched whine that made her teeth ache. The constructs were broadcasting something. Then, impossibly, she began to understand it. They're scanning us, she said, pressing her hands to her temples. The signal, I can feel it in my head. They're searching for something in our genetic code. Around her, others were having similar reactions. Some fell to their knees, while others stood transfixed, their eyes unfocused. Only the Viridi seemed unaffected. Impossible, Aurora whispered, its colors shifting rapidly. The systems are attempting to establish a direct neural interface. But that would mean we're compatible, Sarah gasped. The changes your weapons made to our ancestors, they didn't just help us survive. They made us into living keys. We're part of the system. The lights came back on, but the computers remained dead. The constructs had formed a circle around the command center, their surfaces rippling with the same patterns as the artifact. Dr. Chen, Aurora's voice was urgent now. You must understand. These systems were designed to wage war on a scale your species has never imagined. They don't just destroy, they'd reshape reality itself, if they recognize humans as authorized users. Another tremor rocked the command center, stronger than any before. On the horizon, Sarah could see more constructs rising from the desert, their forms blotting out the stars. They're not recognizing us as users, Sarah realized, a chill running down her spine. They're recognizing us as weapons, our adaptation to their technology. It's exactly what they were designed to create, living weapons capable of surviving and evolving through anything. Dr. Patel's tablet suddenly came to life, displaying data faster than the eye could follow. The installations are connecting to each other through us. Our DNA, our neural patterns, we're becoming part of their network. General Harris drew his sidearm, though Sarah doubted it would do any good against the constructs. Can we shut it down? We are the shutdown system, Sarah said, her mind racing. Think about it. The Viridi created weapons that could adapt and evolve, but they lost control of them. Our ancestors survived by becoming something new, something that could interface with the technology, but wasn't bound by its original programming. She turned to Aurora, whose crystalline form seemed dim in the face of this revelation. You didn't just create weapons. You created a failsafe. Us. Humanity isn't just another test subject. We're the final product. A species capable of controlling these systems because we evolved alongside them. The constructs moved closer, their surfaces now showing patterns that matched human brainwave patterns. They were waiting, Sarah realized, waiting for humanity to accept its role in what was coming. The question is, she said, looking at the assembled humans, and the lone variety, now that we know what we are, what do we do with that power? Above them, more installations were awakening, their ancient systems reaching out to the species that had unknowingly carried their legacy for millions of years. The time for preparation was over. Now, humanity would have to decide whether to embrace their true nature or fight against what they were becoming. The war that had shaped Earth's distant past was about to resume. And this time, humanity wasn't just caught in the crossfire. They were the ammunition. The holographic display in the command center showed Earth as no human had ever seen it before, a web of pulsing energy lines connecting the awakened installations, with humanity's population centers glowing like neurons in a vast nervous system. Sarah watched as another cluster of lines appeared over Southeast Asia, the network growing denser by the hour. The integration is accelerating, Dr. Patel said, her fingers dancing over the neural interface they'd adapted from the construct's technology. 98% of the human population is now showing signs of enhanced genetic activation. The dormant markers in our DNA, they're not just active, they're evolving. Sarah felt it herself, a constant awareness of the ancient systems, like a song playing just at the edge of hearing. The variety weapons hadn't just changed their ancestors. They'd been reshaping humanity for millions of years, preparing them for this moment. Beijing installation is fully online, Marcus reported, his eyes glowing faintly with the neural interface's signature. That makes 7 major nodes active and synchronized with human consciousness patterns. Aurora, the Viridi observer, moved with uncharacteristic agitation. You cannot understand the forces you are connecting to. These systems were never meant to be integrated on this scale. The potential for catastrophic failure is exactly why it had to be us. Sarah interrupted. She pulled up a new display, showing the evolution of human DNA over the past week. Look at these adaptation rates. No other species could survive this level of genetic flux. But humans, we're thriving on it. Because this is what we were made for. General Harris, his own eyes now showing traces of the interface's glow, studied the tactical displays. The Chinese government is reporting spontaneous technological integration. Their citizens are interfacing with dormant systems that have been buried under their cities for millions of years. Same reports coming in from every major population center. It's not just technology, Dr. Patel added. The human nervous system is evolving in real time to accommodate these connections. We're becoming a biological control system for the entire network. A sudden spike in energy readings drew everyone's attention to the main display. The Gobi artifact, the first to awaken, was changing again. Its surface had become completely fluid, forming shapes and patterns that seemed to draw from both ancient variety design and human neural architecture. Full genetic analysis complete, Marcus announced, his voice tight with excitement. We've identified the key sequence. The variety weapons weren't just trying to create better weapons. They were trying to create conscious ones. Weapons that could think, adapt, evolve. But they couldn't control the evolution. So they buried everything. Sarah continued, the pieces finally falling into place. Buried it and ran. But they didn't account for Earth's own evolutionary engine. Life here was already adapted to constant change, constant challenge. When the weapon's influence seeped into the biosphere, it found the perfect host. Aurora finished, its crystalline form dimming. Your ancestors weren't just survivors. They were the first successful integration of our technology with organic life, a completely new form of existence. The ground shook as the Gobi artifact began to transform, its massive form rising from the desert floor like a mountain coming to life. Similar reports were coming in from other sites around the world. The ancient installations weren't just awakening, they were rebuilding themselves, integrating with the species that had evolved to control them. Neural network synchronization at 60% and climbing, Dr. Patel reported. The collective human consciousness is becoming the central processor for the entire system. Sarah felt it. The growing connection between every human mind on Earth, linked through the ancient technology that had shaped their evolution. But there was something else, something darker lurking beneath the surface of the network. We're not the only ones waking up, she realized, her blood running cold. The weapons, the original weapons, they had their own kind of consciousness. And they're still down there, buried in the deepest installations. As if in response to her words, warning signals began blaring across every display. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, something ancient and terrible was stirring, something that recognized humanity not as its masters, but as its replacements. Multiple energy signatures detected, Marcus called out. Whatever these things are, they're bigger than anything we've seen so far. And they're not trying to integrate with us. They're trying to eliminate us. General Harris barked orders into his neural link, coordinating military responses across the globe. But Sarah knew conventional weapons would be useless against what was coming. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was the final test of humanity's evolution. "We have to complete the integration," she said, stepping onto the neural interface platform. "Every human mind, every awakened installation, every piece of surviving technology. We need to merge them all into one system. It's the only way we'll have enough control to fight what's coming. The strain could kill millions," Aurora warned. "Even your enhanced biology has limits." Sarah looked at the display showing the approaching energy signatures, the ancient weapons rising to challenge their successors. "If we don't try, we all die anyway. Humanity wasn't just shaped by your weapons, Aurora. We became something new, something better. And now we're going to prove it." Around the world, billions of human minds began to merge with the ancient network, their collective consciousness reaching out to control the very weapons that had created them. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's true evolution was about to be tested. The question was, would they survive their own awakening? The sky above the Gobi Desert had turned into a maelstrom of energy, sheets of impossible colors cutting through clouds as humanity's consciousness merged with the ancient network. Sarah stood at the heart of it all, her mind connected to billions of others through the neural interface, feeling the power of countless ancient machines flowing through her evolved DNA. First wave of original weapons breaching containment in the Pacific, Marcus reported, his voice echoing both in the command center and across the neural network. They're rewriting reality as they rise. Through the shared consciousness of humanity, Sarah watched as massive forms burst from the ocean depths. Living weapons created eons ago, their very existence an offense against the laws of physics. Where they passed, matter twisted and reformed, the fabric of space itself buckling under their influence. Neural synchronization at 98%, Dr. Patil announced, her consciousness threaded through the network like a stabilizing force. Humanity is fully integrated with the installation network. We are the system now. The Viridi weapons responded to their awakening by launching their assault, not with conventional force, but by attempting to rewrite the very code of existence. Reality rippled and warped around them, threatening to unmake everything humanity had built. But humanity had spent millions of years evolving alongside this technology. Their minds, their DNA, their very essence had been shaped by it. And now, connected as one through the neural network, they were ready to fight back. "All installations, execute primary defense protocols," Sarah commanded, her consciousness echoing through the network. Around the world, the ancient facilities they'd awakened responded, their technology merging with human thought to create something entirely new. The battle that ensued defied description in any human language. It was fought not just in physical space, but across dimensions of reality that humanity had only begun to understand. The original weapons tried to unmake them at the quantum level, to erase the very possibility of their existence. But humanity responded with their greatest strength, their ability to adapt, to change, to become something new. Every attempt to rewrite their reality was met with evolution in real time. Billions of human minds working in concert to maintain their existence while redirecting the weapon's power. "They're trying to access the core genetic sequences," Dr. Patil warned through the network. "The ones that made us what we are." Sarah felt it. The ancient weapons attempting to undo the very changes that had created modern humanity. But those changes weren't just coded into their DNA. They had become part of who they were as a species. "Don't fight it," she broadcast to the unified human consciousness. "We are what we are because we survived them once before. We didn't just adapt to their power. We made it our own. We are the children of their war, but we've grown beyond our origins." Through the neural network, humanity responded. Instead of resisting the weapons' attempts to rewrite them, they embraced the change, channeling it, redirecting it. The installations they'd awakened became extensions of human will, transforming the weapon's reality warping power into something new. "Aurora, watching from the command center, witnessed something unprecedented. Humanity wasn't just fighting the weapons, they were absorbing them, integrating their power into the very network they'd created. Impossible, the Viridi observer whispered. They're not just controlling the technology, they're transcending it. The sky above them burned with transformative energy as humanity exerted their newfound power. The original weapons, created to destroy and dominate, found themselves confronted by a species that had turned their very nature into a strength. All installations reporting successful integration, Marcus called out. The weapons, they're becoming part of us, just like everything else did. Sarah stood at the nexus point of humanity's consciousness, feeling the last of the ancient weapons yield to their control. They had done more than survive this final test. They had proven that they were something entirely new in the universe, not victims of an ancient weapons test, but its ultimate success, a species that could take the power of destruction and transform it into creation. The energy storm above began to calm as humanity's unified consciousness established full control over the network. Reality stabilized, but it was a reality forever changed by what humanity had become. Neural network stabilizing, Dr. Puddle reported. All installations fully integrated with human consciousness. We did it. Sarah looked at Aurora, whose crystalline form seemed dim in comparison to what humanity now was. You came here thinking you needed to contain what your people left behind, she said. But that was never the real story. Your weapons didn't just change us. We changed them. We turned instruments of destruction into tools of evolution. What will you do now? Aurora asked, its colors shifting in patterns of wonder and fear. Your species now controls power that was meant to unmake reality itself. Sarah smiled, feeling the unified consciousness of humanity pulse with shared purpose. We'll do what we've always done. We'll adapt. We'll grow. We'll explore. But most importantly, we'll remember what we learned here. That our greatest strength isn't the power we wield, but our ability to transform it into something better. Across the globe, the ancient installations hummed with new purpose, their technology fully merged with human consciousness. Humanity had faced their trial by fire and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They were no longer just the children of an ancient war. They were its resolution, its redemption, its hope for something better. The sun rose over the Gobi Desert, casting light on a world forever changed. Humanity had awakened to their true nature, and the universe would never be the same.